always have that kind of false confidence that can get them wins. Here, they have real confidence.
Well, I mean, the worst spot for you to be in as we get underway with our 4th match of the day is overconfidence. You don't want to come in and, you know, just play like a bunch of morons. And I mean, Parabellum are definitely a team that could, in theory, come in and say, you know, hey, DZ looks super weak. Let's just play fast and loose and maybe not exactly have the best result. Target bans coming in, by the way. DarkZero ban Nook, and immediately Parabellum take to the chat to show their displeasure with that one. Azami banned out as well. The prominence rate of Azami is through the roof. Through the roof. Thatcher and Nook off the board, Azami off the board, and then this frees up one of these defender bans to likely go to maybe Valkyrie. I think it might be a Valkyrie or my Kaid. Okay, interestingly enough. No Thatcher. He said, let's get rid of Kaid. Wipe the slate clean, so to speak.
I do think actually you made a good point.
What was that point?
With the overconfidence point about PB, because something I do want people to focus on as they watch this, see what Penguin does. Because Penguin, a lot of the time, and this has been a theme with Penguin since all the way back in Invite 2021,
right?
He can be a little silly sometimes.
A little silly Billy.
So a little silly Billy. He will kind of try to open things up for his team by getting aggressive, but sometimes he will push it a little bit far. A lot of the times, this will manifest as him literally jumping out of windows to attack people, and you'll watch him do it, and you'll be like, why did you do that? You are literally by yourself. There is no one who can trade you. And unfortunately, a lot of the time, this was another recurring theme last stage. He'll play operators like Smoke. He's not playing as much anymore, but he'll play useful operators, in this case like Valk with that C4, and he'll end up dying very early on. So the overconfidence with PB, I think, is something that should be noted, because if they are on a hot streak, they can get ahead of themselves sometimes.
You said dying with C4. Playing on a Valkyrie right now is Penguin's role, right?
Yep.
Intel operator, extremely strong in the current meta, but also you can play Valkyrie off-site. She doesn't need to sit in. You find that right now with the very first defense here on Cafe, between DarkZero and Parabellum, by the way, it's an upstairs defense. So it is not uncommon for a Valkyrie to play down below in wheel, down in train, down in dining area, hold that red carpeted 90 hallway that you see right now in the bottom portion of your screen, and then lob a Nitrocell up.
Could very well do that if they want to. Also for Parabellum, in terms of secondary utility, 2 deployable shields they are rocking right now. Of course, you have Kool-Aid playing it, of course, but Gunnar also rocking the Warden, wanting to bring one of those deployable shields. He is rocking it. You got the Jaeger, the Wamai as well.
Dudes rock.
Dudes rock. And in this case, Warden rocks.
The ultimate dude.
Well, okay, well, remember Penguin C4? It's gone now.
The only C4 that was on the board used on what was a great bait mate out of DarkZero, who stood by the red hatch and allowed the C4 to go up. No damage done to DarkZero in the process. Penguin has ceded that position, and now instead, a potential run out. Looking for drones. Gunnar under a little bit of pressure inside of Piano.
Bomb located by attack.
He watches the window. Flash goes out. Warden's gadget. Those smart glasses. Activated. Where are you being pushed? Nothing from DarkZero outside of that. Lots of utility right now from DarkZero to clear out whatever they want. They've got double hard breachers in the Hibana and the Ace. No secondary hard breach gadgets being brought, so you've at least got a bit of an insurance policy. And Blaz decides to ego peek that red hatch that was opened up by his teammate earlier on. Panbazu, the very first kill of this match. Gives DZ a bit of an advantage with 90 seconds left.
First half of the round, we see PB wait, bait out a C4 from PB. Then we see them wait on the same hatch, coincidentally, and what do you know? Somebody from Parabellum runs up the stairs and takes a fight. The first half of the round has been in both utility and kills. DZ waiting for Parabellum to make a move and then capitalizing off of it. The second now comes through for DarkZero as Hyper cuts down Gunnar, who has been playing in that pixel position throughout the entirety of the round. And Penguin looking to take that spot. This is a very risky gambit by him, because not only is the shield gone, but there are 3 players all in this area, and that bathroom wall is opened up. So if he wants to play here, he's got to be extremely careful or extremely lucky.
Hyper on that Finka roll with a kill already to his name, as you talked about, losing one of those nades. The Wamai discs, just a little bit of a problem to deal with. The final minute of action right now.
Okay.
Penguin, nice shot, but he's not able to capitalize off it. It's Kool-Aid credited with that kill, and Kool-Aid finds a second. That SMG-11 seemingly has endless bullets, and all of them going into the DZ players. Down goes NJR to Eska, and suddenly a 5v3 becomes a 3v1. Hell of a showing now from Parabellum through this mid-round, and Eska peaks, and down goes Panbazu. I don't know what Kool-Aid is saying. It looked like some lovely things. Like, I really enjoy your gamesmanship. You are gracious competitors, and I am so happy that we are on this stage together. That was my lip reading.
Oh my God, Rob, you're so cute.
Wow. Canadian, I don't know why people call you comedian, but you are such a good IGL. I think that's what he was saying.
They call you Troy Comedian because of your sense of humor.
Everybody knows that you make the funniest jokes. Everybody loves your references.
Remember that one time you talked about the UMP at Invite? That was a
that
knee
was
slapper.
so funny. I really appreciate it. It is a pleasure to win a round against you. I think that's what Kool-Aid was saying.
All of that.
To be honest, there's bad lip reading. You can go and you can do it yourself. Figure out what he was saying. But either way, Parabellum take round number 1.
Indeed, they will. And right there, DarkZero able to bait out quite a bit from Parabellum, and while PB end up losing both Gunnar and Blaz off the board early on, 2 of those prolific pickups that we were so excited to see come through. And then you know who sometimes doesn't get a lot of attention? Well, he gets a fair bit of attention, but in comparison to Gunnar and Blaz right now, Kool-Aid with
Kool-Aid
that
is
clutch
probably the
factor right
least
there.
talked about player on that roster, I would say, yeah.
And
absolutely.
And I think one of the things that make Kool-Aid so special is he's on those hard support roles, but he is not at all afraid to get aggressive and just maybe try to take a gamble, at least on attack, to get some control. But on the defense, he's not at all one to start succumbing under the pressure. But I will say, though, DarkZero also getting a little bit, how do I want to phrase this? Not really locking down Penguin's position. I think taking that for granted. That's the kind of thing that PB would love to try to retake, try to move back into pick zone. I think they might have, that was a little bit of an oversight right there.
Yeah. Well, we are on a clean slate when it comes to Cafe, as it has not been played yet in the NAL this stage. You can go to other regions and look at the win rates. You can go back to the Charlotte Major and even Stage 1 if you want to. Oh no, oh no, oh no! I don't know how Penguin got away with that one onto the kill on the Hyper. Panbazoo, oh Rob. It's a little bit too slow to the punch, but Hyper, who was a very critical part of that first round, even if DarkZero came out empty-handed, you lose a Finka, you lose 2 of your 4 grenades, you lose access to the adrenal surges, and you lose, I would argue, the best gun in the game, which is the LMG in the hands of Finka. So a bit of a debilitating start, though it is a trade. You lose Penguin. What did you say about Penguin again? You said that's how we're going to approach this match?
Yeah, I said that at least a couple times that, well, I didn't exactly say this, but I said you should look out to see if Penguin just starts hopping out of windows or getting really aggressive. And what do you know? He did that. And to be fair right there, sure, he went 1 for 1 and taking on the Finka as Jaeger, by the way. Really good pick, really good trade. But that was from a hip-fire headshot while dropping at like Mach 5. Oh, there was a little bit of luck involved in there, and that was still the kind of play that Penguin will make that is incredibly risky. When it pays off, it works, but a lot of the time it hasn't been paying off this stage so far, but at least here it did. DarkZero do trade back, but as you said, you mentioned all the utility that the Finka now lacks, or well, that DarkZero lacks, because that Finka is off the board, and Parabellum can completely pull back. They can wait for DZ to push up this long bar, start putting pressure inside of Whitehall as well. It is a reading defense, so once you get that vertical control for the attack, you still can win the round, but with only a minute left, DZ have to start moving very soon, and there's still plenty of PB members waiting.
I just want to let you know that you said Mach 5. That's a very interesting unit of measurement. That you know, that's 3,836 miles per hour.
That's how fast he was dropping.
I don't even think we would be able to see it at this point. He would now just die at this exact moment. But I appreciate the point of reference. Nice shot by Blaz. Again, these ego challenges that we see from Parabellum. Hey, they're working. DZ struggling just as they struggled yesterday. And there's Gunnar now. Another ego challenge. Through the door, he sees Panbazoo, and he decides to go for it with limited intel. Blaz's second attempt is met the hands of the F2, one of the highest fire rates in the game. And Canadian doesn't miss that, but Eclipse does. Kool-Aid, one of his own, and it's very nearly a team ace. Who was the one that was missing? Was it Eska? Eska was the only one who I think
so.
Didn't get a kill. And Parabellum walks away with yet a second round. And it's based off of ego peaks.
Yes. Ego peaks, especially in that mid to late round. Because you see Blaz take that shot right there. Really not like a big point in retaking that bit of control, because as I mentioned earlier, you took out that Finka, you took out so much utility early on, and at that point, with a minute left, or a little bit before that, with a minute left, DZ still hadn't even started trekking across long bar. They were pretty far away from getting that vertical control, and if they wanted to get it, they probably would have had to push in and start taking 50-50 gunfights. And then Blaz just peeks him. And then Gunnar just peeks somebody down in red. Why? Because, I don't know, it's Parabellum, that's what they do.
I would like to read you a very interesting conversation that happened this morning. It was a tweet by Gunnar_R6, who tweeted out about 5-ish hours ago, another day, another ego chow, which means another ego challenge. 20 people like that on twitter.com. And you know who the only response is from? Hyper R6S. And he said, and I quote, "This tweet banged." Well,
Yo, with this doing numbers.
I just want to let you know, Gunnar ego peaked. and he banged for sure.
That is true.
DZ on the wrong side of the Ego peaks. Hyper wasn't the one who got killed by the Ego challenge. He got killed by the Jaeger flying out the window, and Penguin goes for another one again. Again, you talked about how indicative of Parabellum's mental is how Penguin plays, and it seems like his brain is very thoroughly removed from his skull at this point.
Yes. I mean, he went with the whole, you know, two hits on the barricade, crouch so it's silent and walk out, but my man just tried to challenge somebody at 25 meters away with the 416. The ego you have to even think that is a gunfight you might win in this meta is honestly astounding. The fact that Penguin came away alive and is not dead, he's on 1 HP, sure, but he thought he could win that with the 416. The 416 nowadays, that is honestly crazy. But DZ, they might be thoroughly scared from it in the first minute. They are still just kind of opening up some of these doors, getting some of that early intel, still have 9 drones to do with it. It is a kitchen defense as well, by the way, and it looks like, well, I was going to say, they might be going for that full clear. Not too sure yet, but with Canadian taking down Penguin, who was already close to death, yep, they're starting on the top floor.
He finished the job. Eska, with that MPX in hand, eliminates NJR over by the main door, and now back into, I guess, back into a bomb site, or close to the bomb site. Kool-Aid now not too far off. He's holding down VIP. It was code check. I was looking for the name of the room.
I don't want to say it, but
my brain just stopped working.
it's fine. It happens.
Just kind of like Penguins. It just
Yes.
I removed it also from my skull. Eclipse taking down Kool-Aid, and now a safe repellent from Pambazoo. Upside down, both Selmas will go off.
That is a really big pick. That shield just got destroyed. Kool-Aid taken down. If they want to go for the plant and freezer, taking out that player inside of VIP is huge. Now you put so much pressure on Blaz to hold down that bomb chassis with the C4 gone as well. Now Gunner gone. DZ on a roll.
No Fraudnady in this round.
No,
Two
no
big
comedian.
kills to his name, DZ walking in and just taking charge, but look at that Eska from above. Yet another to add to his tally. Hasn't died yet as Parabellum have taken these 2 rounds. Playing by Pillar. Watching over Brown Stairs. Nade goes in from Hyper. He hasn't made his way into the building just yet. Eclipse now the one to tussle as it's again Eska in this position. Eclipse can't hit water if he fell out of a boat. Eska, not a single point of damage. Blaz takes out Eclipse, and there's Pambazoo to end Eska's reign of terror. It's Blaz, the recent import under fire from 2 shots. No damn way he pulls that off. An unbelievable play.
What is Penguin doing?
As Parabellum loses their minds on the desk and erupts in celebration. So hard that it takes the headset off of Eska's head. What a play by Blaz, proving why Parabellum brought him in all the way from France. And Parabellum are up 3-0, Carter.
Can we look at what... Oh, I thought they were going to cut back to the player react. Penguin looked like the Lord himself entered his body. He was waving his hands. That was probably the funniest reaction I've seen in the stage so far, by the way. But yes, that was ridiculous by Blaz. But overall, for DZ throughout that round, they got a huge pick on a Kool-Aid inside of VIP. Bottom white is basically uncontested. The only player they have to deal with at that point is Blaz holding the freezer drop. And at this point, what is 4v3? They can do that. They can play the man advantage. But so PB, do what you need to do. Eska starts getting aggressive on the flank. They don't want to play sight with how much control DZ have at their disposal. And it works out. He wastes a lot of time. And unfortunately, he falters, but that tends to happen in the 4v3. Sometimes the trades don't go your way, especially once they lost Gunner. And then Blaz does that. He just like smoked both of them. There's not much I can really say beyond that, especially that first shot where he just locked onto him, hip fired. He's just better in that case.
Well, I mean, Parabellum could have just broken the spirits of DarkZero. Honestly, after that round, I am a little bit surprised that DZ have not taken the
I was thinking the same thing.
After that round, after that clutch, and the stuff that we have seen, and I don't want to use the word stuff. There's an expletive that I want to use, but I can't use it because we're not allowed to say swears on broadcast. But after the stuff that Parabellum is doing, if I was Min, I'd be like, you know what? Let's talk for a moment. Let's just maybe settle ourselves down.
Guys, some wacky stuff is happening. Maybe we should talk about it.
Yes. Maybe let's discuss these things, these events, which are occurring in front of our very eyes and are happening to us in this server. A very similar defensive setup right now from Parabellum as they go back to this cocktail defense that they were successful on all the way back in round number 1. Oh my goodness, Gunner, you're a second too late. His position given away over by Ticket Booth, and now there's a bunch of gunfire raining through. Telltale sign of the Type 89 as an Adrenal Surge goes out. Will Gunner vault through the window? That is the question. No! A beautiful shot on Napamba instead, and he gets away with his life intact. No amount of stimming is going to help DarkZero on that one. Again, Parabellum on the board first with their opening pick. As Penguin rotates down below. Still has access to a C4, if you recall, in this cocktail defense before. The C4 was used early on.
That hatch.
No effect on that hatch. Instead, it's in the back pockets of some destructive capabilities from Valkyries, still very available.
And if Parabellum were able to waste 30 to 45 more seconds for DZ and Penguin stays down below, if they know about his position, they'll have to make a decision. Do we want to clear that out, or do we just want to maybe bait out the C4 and hope it misses? If they don't know about his position, well, that's another problem entirely. But for Parabellum, again, they are holding very strongly onto this early round, at least in terms of momentum, but especially in terms of kills. With that Hibana now gone, was the only ranged hard breacher to like truly sit on those windows and get it. But never mind, Gunnar is still inside a pixel.
That was an ego peek, absolutely, yes. Yet again from Gunnar, who tweeted about it
before.
Go. Threading the needle, Penguin tosses it up, down goes Hyper, and DZ are on the wrong side of a numbers disadvantage. Blaz watches a Rotero drone go by. After getting that pick and securing themselves control over towards Piano, DZ need to very quickly make their way to the bomb site. NJR is not indoors, so that is a bit of a problem. It's up to Canadian and Eclipse to do that. Eclipse will walk the diffuser in and then likely rely on his teammates to protect him. As out goes one Selma. Drone flies by, Penguin sees that, but Parabellum, very good patience right now. Sitting and waiting. Eska on the jump out, down goes NJR. There's the coverage, who was out on those cocktail windows. He'll try to get back to the bomb site. Should have no problem to do that, but Canadian all of a sudden again, no fraud. Canadian, 2 kills, 3 kills. Where is he? How is Troy Jaroslavsky doing this to Parabellum? It's Eska to retake with Eclipse getting the diffuser down, and a 4K could very easily be Canadians if Eska is found out. He's only died once, we will remind you, and it's Canadian again to lead his team. He showed up huge in yesterday's matchup, and dare I say it, was the lone bright spot for DarkZero. If his team can't do it, then I suppose he can, and you can just see from the look on his face, he's not very happy.
No, he's not.
No real celebration. 4Ks, another day at the office. DarkZero get the very first round.
And you have the ego challenge from Gunnar starting out in that round. You saw you saw the position he rotated. If someone is pushing that far up into Cigar, they are either crazy or extremely confident, because you basically need to be thinking about
both.
That's a fair point, and I would say Gunnar fits both of those categories at certain times. But you need to be worried about all 3 of those windows inside of Cigar, and if you want to rotate back and stop committing, it's a very difficult rotate to fall back on. But then he wins the fight with Panba, so it doesn't matter. And while DZ had, 2 ranged hard breach, if you wanted to just sit on the windows and hard breach, now not an option. Unless you're really good at arcing those Selmas, you're probably going to have to actually go in the building at that point. It was overall a really good round for Parabellum, and it's a shame we did not see Canadians 3K to get into sight, because the only way that was possible was just an immense amount of individual skill in that moment, because if he was the only guy doing work, something either went catastrophically wrong for Parabellum or Canadian is built different.
I mean, you said it yourself, and we will refer back to it many, many times, is that the mood of Parabellum is going to be how confident they play and how cocky they play. And round after round, there are these ego challenges that are coming in, and Parabellum are swinging with limited intel and just trying to knock DZ off stride. And I don't think that's the wrong play necessarily. DZ can get flustered, and it can cause them to collapse in a round or 2. But as we saw at the Major, DarkZero have pretty good mental, as do most teams that tend to play under Canadian. He can center that mental now and keep his team very much in it. But if you're Parabellum, maybe a bit more patience, because we didn't see the 3K that Canadian got.
Yes.
But how many of those were forced errors from Parabellum? How many of them were not necessarily Canadian capitalizing, but were Parabellum trying to shut him down and peeking over and over and over again, when they could have maybe played a bit more defensive, and they could have played a bit safer and not given themselves away?
And that is absolutely a downside of at least the playstyle choice that PB want to go for. It is probably likely that maybe someone who's like, oh, Canadian's pushing in, guys, swing him, he can't fight back. And then, well, if everybody swings and he is able to fight back, you suddenly go from a 4v2, 4v3 to a post plant fairly soon after, and Eska's the only one alive, and he just had to come back from marching outside of the building. So it is absolutely a downside to the choice Parabellum go for. Right here, half the round is now gone. We have not seen that style of peak just yet. Parabellum have been waiting patiently over on the cocktail side of things. Nobody pushing far up in Cigar. Now Hyper, as a result, will start pushing up long bar, and Kool-Aid's caught off guard.
Kool-Aid knew he was there too, because you can hear the rat-a-tat-tat as Hyper continues to unload into the soft wall of the bathroom. Down goes Eska to follow. Suddenly DZ have their footing. As was talked about on the desk, this is the time for them to do it, and a pretty good time for it to come about. So maybe no timeout needed. There might be something to this coaching thing that you and I don't know about.
Might just be. And also here, take a note of how things are different from the previous rating defense. DarkZero was hardly able to get over here. Now they have the vertical, and while Blaz is getting active, Penguin is downed as well. DZ have the advantage and the vertical as well, but Parker, the round might just end anyway.
I mean, there's still 45 seconds left, and Parabellum have been swinging, and that old adage, swing or be swung, they're swinging. It's not really working out. It'd be like if I was trying to fight. The swings wouldn't be all that impressive. It'd look like a barrage of noodles coming in your direction. Because I'm not a fighter. I'm a lover, in fact, if it were to come down to that. And we'll see if Gunnar is either of those. Does he love DarkZero, or will he fight DarkZero? Small challenge. They know his position, and he gets shut down by Eclipse after taking a single player at DZ down with him. But that's 2 in a row for DarkZero, and really could have been 3 in a row if that third round had not been that inhuman clutch from Blaz. DarkZero showing promising signs. Parabellum, honestly, really need to settle down.
I would agree. Though I will say there, at least at the beginning, they definitely weren't settled. They weren't waiting for DZ. But it seemed a little bit more, almost a little bit more unenergetic, a little bit more lazy. Kool-Aid just walking and swinging the double door as Hyper is fully ready and aware of this possibility. Sure, it's a little bit of a 50-50 between those two. Maybe Hyper operating off of, hey, he's probably here instead of he is here, but he still wins the fight. And what is Eska to do? He's all the way inside a pixel. There's no angle for him to get that trade, so that's the full advantage for DZ. Eska then rotates back later, or well, later ends up dying as well. DZ have the complete control of the vertical, and they're able to just get the kills at that point. Look at that as opposed to the reading defense from before, where we had Penguin jumping out of Cigar in the first 30 seconds. One time, the ego challenges worked, and Parabellum were able to retain a man advantage and waste time before DZ started pushing in. And then you have that round where DZ basically got everything they wanted and the swings didn't work. It's a good sign for DZ if these are the rounds we're getting in the latter portions of Parabellum's defense.
All right. We talked about ego challenges. Ain't nothing egotistical about breaking a window and going for an early peek. No, no, sir. Not at all, buddy. Ooh, you might get this. Oh, it's smoked by Hyper. Blaz thought he had it. He did not.
He did not. I mean, he did sit at that doorway for about 20 to 25 whole seconds. DZ had ample time to read into that spawn peek, and you saw Hyper was looking at that doorway for about half the time when he was walking over there. He's like, you're probably here, you're probably here, you're probably here. Yep, you were there, and now you are dead. So this is the sort of downside of the Parabellum play style, or at least this confidence that we've seen from PB, is when you go for those spawn peaks and you just sit there the entire time, it's pretty easy to read into for DarkZero. Now they're starting on that skylight. This is a cocktail defense, of course. With PB in the disadvantage, those confidence swings, if you lose them, hurt a lot more.
You open up that one table, by the way, so you can see all the way to the rotate in Cocktail. Just in case anybody's curious as to why that's there. It also takes out some of the floor as well. So if you're going to play underneath and you want to potentially plant or concern yourself with that area, it's just a small little angle that you can play off of pillars or brown stairs down below. So obviously there is a big explosive radius around those Rotero drones, and there's a lot of value for them as well. And 3 of them have gone out. Canadian is left with 1 more to his name. Eska's isolated in back bars. We hit the halfway point of the round. An Adrenal Surge goes. DarkZero drop down and may aggressively take up some map control. So they go to open up the wall and Penguin falls. NJR picks up kill number 2, losing a lot of HP in a second duel. It's not really working out all that well. Eclipse fishing for one over towards Lumber. He sees it. A toxic canister baited out. Damage done as he moves away. Still just playing ring around the rosy and could sweep in behind Eska, but there's a ping to his name. Panbazoo has his teammates back. And suddenly there's patience from Parabellum, but they don't really have anything to show for it, as it's 4 kills, then a 5th to follow for DZ in quick order. Only a single kill to Parabellum's name. And the first half, 3 rounds to Parabellum, answered back by 3 rounds from DarkZero. And it's an even scoreline as we switch sides.
And it is good to note for that cocktail defense as well. This was a round where all the way back in round number 1, we saw some aggression from PB that was promptly shut down by DarkZero. Panbush starting out with that kill onto Blaz, and then Gunnar dying fairly soon after. It was a 3v5, but the reason it was brought back was Kool-Aid, a little bit of Penguin, but Kool-Aid was credited with the 3 kills. That turned it from a 3v5 to a 3v2. But Cocktail, when DZ attacked it, they pretty much got a lot of what they wanted. They were able to clear out that shield, push Penguin back to bathroom, room to make him decide whether he wants to peek or whether he wants to play it safe. And here, it was pretty much the same thing, except with no big individual play and not as many mistakes by DarkZero. It was probably how round 1 should have gone. And while we were complimenting the confidence on Parabellum while giving it an asterisk, I think that round is important to note, or round 6 is important to note, as it probably could have been a lot more for DZ if Kool-Aid hadn't gone big in round number 1, and Blaz hadn't gone big in round number 3. PB have definitely had a lot of flashy plays, but DZ so far, I think, have been more substantively solid.
Well, very first defense now for DarkZero. Tail of the tapes, first half in the books. Parabellum win rounds 1, 2, and 3. DarkZero 4, 5, and 6. Isn't it nice? Isn't it nice how that turns out? In terms of opening picks, Parabellum had one uncontested opening pick. They traded in round number 2 with DarkZero. Even though Parabellum got the first one, DZ kept it close. DZ 4 first bloods. So an advantage in their favor. And again, those numbers getting better in rounds 5 and 6. After we saw Parabellum being a bit cocky, and then maybe peeling it back just a tiny bit. Second time that you and I have seen sends today, as Kool-Aid will run the 3 armor, 1 speed operator. Again, they have an ROU device that basically rolls out, and as it hits walls and bounces back and forth, it creates a smoke wall. Down goes Eska as Canadian runs through the door once again. Very much not a LaFraud Canadian game. Oh. He's 9-3, leading his team. And again, it's a bit of a quiet game for some of these aggressive players from DZ. NJR has not exactly had the start to stage 2 that he wanted, but good news, there's depth on DZ. Hyper gets in on the action. He's removed by Blaz. It's a trade, but still the numbers favor DarkZero. About the halfway point right now. Eclipse could get one, but unable to control the recoil. Goes through the wall. Nice shot on the Blaz. Wow. Beautifully done. And Parabellum's entry swiftly greeted by demise. The hands of DZ.
Indeed, we had that initial run out from Canadian that took down Eska, and well, Penguin unfortunately getting turned on by Eclipse all the way inside a cocktail. So now we just have Gunner in a 1v4, and he is downed immediately by a shot.
Duo, because guess what they always did? They'd hop out of windows, they'd play like, and I quote, a bunch of morons. And it was really Canadian's downfall. That most infamous match that we knew from Rio when Fnatic humbled Evil Geniuses. What did they do? They pulled their brains out of their skull and they were flying out of windows with shotguns. Canadian, to his credit, really just like settled down and reflected on that. And now he knows how to counter it. So Parabellum deciding to go all out, work the first couple rounds, but DZ have settled in. Since then, 4 rounds in a row and a timeout burned from Parabellum. As we speculated it would be DarkZero to take it first. No, they still have their timeout in their back pocket. It's Parabellum now who have the wind working against them.
And hopefully for Parabellum, as we are seeing a reading defense coming out from DarkZero, see a little bit more coordinated of a roam clear, or maybe watching those run-out positions, because we saw Eska in a good spot on that white window, who could have helped Parabellum start pushing up into Cigar and pushing up into that white hallway, or into Cocktail as well if you're able to shut down that other hallway, but he was cut down by the run-out. Here, hopefully we can see them maybe get on this Cocktail rappel and then start either nading these players out of positions and pushing them back, what have you, but definitely something that isn't based so much more on individual play, but more on the structure and the coordination between these teams. We already see a run out from Canadian, and it does have quite a bit of damage to Gunner, but because he's on that Finca and Canadian did not secure the kill, he adrenal surges and gets himself back up, and the clear for Parabellum will be unobstructed for the first 45 seconds.
There's a flash that goes in. Pamba just caught on the door frame. Blaz could have capitalized, but the drone's a little bit too late. And again, we talk about how drones, well, when you drone out, that info is about 5 seconds to, or less, effective. And good patience from Panbazoo, and he finally unloads, and it's a bit sloppy. He's panicked as the hatch above him is open, and he knows he needs to find safe harbor somewhere else. And there's this complex network of reinforcements and rotates from above. Gunner takes down Canadian, the high-flying performer from DarkZero, leading his team, and IGL is no more. One thing I will talk about very briefly about Canadian is that while he does play a flex role, you don't want him having the most kills. If Canadian has the most kills, it means that something on most of the lineups for DarkZero is going wrong. There's a reason why you bring in Hyper and NJR and then Panbazoo, because they're the ones who need to be getting these kills, not necessarily Canadian. But sometimes, depending on the strat, it works out effectively for them.
And it does work out in this case because Hyper and NJR do tend to be on the less aggressive side of things, whereas Panda and Canadian, while, you know, Canadian doesn't play those same rules, Canadian can be a very aggressive player when he wants to, so if you need some space made, Panda and Canadian, they are typically the ones that tend to do it unless Hyper is having a really good day as well. But right now we're in a 4v4, and DZ don't need to make space. They need to, well, I was going to say they need to do that. They just need to wait for Parabellum to start making mistakes or start walking into their crosshairs, and that's exactly what happens with Hyper. Takes down the player in mining, and that is where Parabellum is consolidating with their entire remaining manpower.
And Eska needs to thank his lucky stars that the recoil of the storm is a little bit too much, and it's a little bit too much for Hyper the second attempt. No damage done as it's now Gunner in the line of fire as the sledge of Eska was the intended target. And what on earth is that? Panbazoo finally getting it as Gunner picks up kill number 2. The Finka putting in good work, but now it's Penguin's turn to be down. It's a back and forth, but DarkZero coming out ahead. They don't know if they can secure or not. The Finka's a lot closer, but Eclipse gets the final kill, and the timeout doesn't mean anything in the immediate. It's 5-3 for DarkZero. They are steamrolling Parabellum right now, and they're very firmly in control of this map.
5 rounds in a row for them now. 1 round number 4, and they have not lost one since. And part of the problem for PB in that round was surprise, surprise, Parker. There were some people off-site on a reading defense. They were on the top floor. And it seemed like when Blaz dropped down that red hatch, there was a mute jammer in his way. And he said, oh no, I can't drone out the humidor. I can't drone out Cigar. So what am I going to do? I'll just drop the hatch and I'll start moving down red. But unfortunately for him, there was somebody in there, and Pamba takes advantage of that moment, and Blaz can't react in time. But a similar thing happens later when Pamba, who's still on the top floor because PB, they've never cleared it out. In fact, they rotated to a mining and train push, likely because they were never able to establish the vert you need for a reading push. But because they never got Pamba, he still has control of the top floor, takes down a key angle for Parabellum and Pillar, and at that point, they've already suffered quite a few losses across the board, struggled, gone 1-for-1 inside of train with Hyper. There was some big oversights or a lack of intel on Panda's position that gave him some advantages, and DZ were just also able to play the man advantage very well by going 1-for-1 when they needed to.
No, very well summed up here. And I mean, I don't know at this point what Parabellum are capable of doing. Maybe what we saw yesterday from them is a bit of an abnormality, I'm not sure. Eska came within seconds of dying early on, as it's now DarkZero's turn to exert some of that early influence with a spawn peek or two. Hyper narrowly missing out on an opening kill in the first 15 seconds. That would have been debilitating to Parabellum and their chances.
Would have been very, very unfortunate if you're a PB fan if that ended up happening. But right now, they escaped that spawn peak for the time being. It also would have been kind of demoralizing if you have Blaz try to make a similar play, he fails, and all of a sudden Hyper just smokes you on the same operator, albeit from a different angle. Would have been unfortunate. But Canadian right now,
oh no,
he's peeking out that window. But Gunner, he is ready, not for the jump out, but for a rotate down red stairs. Canadian crosses. There's a second chance that Gunner could pick up this kill, but he'll back off for the time being, and that gives Canadian the opportunity to retreat down to that bottom floor that he so needed.
Absolutely, and Canadian doesn't have an opportunity to get back up to full HP. There was a Thunderbird in the round previously on that reading defense, but none to be seen of just yet. Parabellum have the top floor, and will now translate that to the second floor. It's a kitchen defense, as was pointed out. So, yeah, you can get map control quite quickly if you don't see DarkZero holding it above. But then the question becomes, what do you do with that? As you don't really see this bunker-style defense on Kitchen. You go off to VIP, you go off to Christmas, or to Cocktail, or VIP rather, and then you go off to Coat Check, and then you go off to Small Bakery. And then you play off of Prep. There's all these different angles for you to sit in that are connected to the bomb site, but aren't the actual site itself. And as you can see, I think Canadian is the only player from DarkZero who's in the actual bomb site. The rest are close enough, but they're not defending it. They can't stop you. So instead, you have to, once again, after you take the top floor and the second floor, then figure out how do you take out the people playing on the periphery. And
you can see PB right now, they want to go for this freezer drop. They want to go down white stairs, and that means they have to focus on Panbazoo and the player playing on bottom brown stairs. Right now, Gunner, I was going to say he has an opportunity given to him, but Panbo wins the fight.
Oh, you lose that.
Exactly. And DZ able to hold this position despite Penguin getting coat check. For the push Parabellum are going for, they lost the more important gunfight.
Absolutely. And I mean, yeah, Canadian is down, yeah, the Legion is down, but at this point, there's very little left that a Legion can accomplish other than just being a warm body. Oh no! Bad timing as Eska pulls out the nade. He's in trouble, and Eclipse punishes him for that and immediately repositions safely inside of Kitchen. Kool-Aid to light him up, and the remainder of Eclipse is found out, secured by the sidearm, and now a reset for Parabellum. Kool-Aid with diffuser in hand, he's in the bomb site. Blaz covering from the back. Will there be a flank, or will the attention be elsewhere? Yes, but Blaz looks away, collapses onto Panbazoo. DZ swatting and finding some very important kills. Now it's Kool-Aid to do the rest of the work. NJR, a nice shot, and it's suddenly Penguin in a 1v2. He's above, he catches Hyper, they both duel. It's a bit messy, but NJR's on the diffuser. Penguin needs to get down there as pros are sticking, and NJR is very firmly in that position, and he'll get it! Parabellum get the kill, but they don't get the objective. DarkZero does. That's 6 rounds in a row, and DZ are on match point.
And PB, despite the fact that they pushed back the very little roam presence that DZ had, I mean, they had Canadian, but he gave that up fairly quickly. They had the vertical, but they needed to get something on that bottom floor. Whether you want to go from Bakery or you want to go from Freezer, you need a pick on either the player playing co-check or the player playing on the backside. PB start committing to the Freezer drop, and they get the kill co-check, but they don't get the kill in VIP. And Hyper is playing in a position where he can take on the position of the co-check player if he needs to. So despite the fact that they got that kill, Hyper can still play there, Panba can still play in his position, and PB are just forced to drop down the hatch, and it comes very close to the wire. I have to give them that. But still, PB, they did not have nearly as wide of an opening as they needed, and it came down to getting a lot of those kills. And DZ so far for the past 6 rounds, I said it, close to the end of their attacks, and it is still true on the defenses, they have the much more solid foundation, whereas for PB, it's been if they can get a huge play or get gunfights, but DZ's core, their fundamental structure, that is what is winning them these past 6 rounds.
It's what won them the Charlotte Major as well, and it's what had them finish second in the NAL Finals. DZ have been the most successful team out of North America. I think the only real argument I guess you could make would be maybe TSM, and that is fully supported by their SI win. But outside of that, TSM really haven't had that remarkable of a year. DZ have been so consistent, and again, I know we focus on him a lot, but the Troy Canadian effect is huge for these teams, and it's obviously working out very effectively for DZ. And you're right, the fundamentals and the foundation of DarkZero is quite strong. And no shade to Parabellum. They had those 2 very good first rounds. The 3rd round was a coin toss. Again, it came down to Blaz's clutch. But other than that, Parabellum have really looked like the team that's been playing from behind so far today, and I haven't seen a lot that I've liked. Out of these last 6 rounds, there's been a couple good plays here and there, but ultimately, they look like they're being beaten across most of this map, and it could also just come down to map pool. These players on DZ have played Cafe a number of times. Maybe Parabellum as a team is just not as well practiced, and they maybe weren't expecting to go to Cafe, who knows?
I'm not entirely sure as to that fact, but yes, you are 100% correct on the earlier one. We have that strong DZ core, and for PB, when they
100% correct.
100% correct. Not in the predictions, but on that
best kind of correct.
It is.
You can't be any more.
An A+ is the highest grade. Well, let's see.
A++.
That is a good point. If PB are able to get some more of these kills here, like that opening, that could be good, but Panbazoo answers back onto Eska, and there's still Eclipse on this top floor. Gunner is not aware whatsoever. Still a 3v3, but Parabellum, they come out of this roam clear bloody.
Absolutely trading back very well, but Parabellum had those 2 players above for the easy pinch. And with this being a mining defense, you want to hold that top floor just as you do if it's a reading defense. It's a very critical part of this map. Now, some of reading's been opened up, and Kool-Aid can assess that with the diffuser in hand, and he loses the fight to the Thunderbird of Panbazoo, who immediately pushes back onto that diffuser. He gets swatted away by Penguin as, again, he's the insurance policy, it seems like, as he's picked up both of these kills, just cleaning up where need be. A 2v2 with NJR and Canadian to clutch out. Both of these players have been in this situation a lot. Blaz is more of an unknown quantity, but you know exactly what he's capable of. Penguin 2. So a really even series right now. Patience as Parabellum are waiting. Where do they go next? They see one inside of the train component. Blaz watches the toxic canister go. Nothing can be found. Canadian on a flank. Could he potentially catch them? Looking the wrong way. He can, and now he will need to clutch out. 10 kills to his name. Blaz will retrieve the diffuser. The French versus the Canadian. It's in his hands. But that's not the place to plant the bomb. No, 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 no. Blaz, the diffuser needs to go down somewhere else. And he gives his position away. Repeatedly being spam marked over and over. Canadian needs to play the clock. 10 seconds to go. That's it. Parabellum can keep themselves alive, but Canadian just needs to hold off, and he doesn't. He takes the fight instead. 7 rounds in a row. 7 rounds in a row, and Canadian gets up from his chair, and he's taking the trash talk right to them. A great game from DarkZero. And immediately, they fist bump. You like that show of good sportsmanship, Lynx. What a performance by